Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Cobern, and today's episode, we're going to talk about Emmanuel Ogbah, the pass rusher, second-year pass rusher from the Cleveland Browns. And this was a question in the comments section saying, hey, could you do an Emmanuel Ogbah piece? And yeah, I figured Emmanuel Ogbah is a good place to start when it comes to discussing pass rushers because he's someone that had a lot of backlash against him. Understandable backlash, but I think people got a little too low on him overall when it comes to him. So I think let's talk about him. Let's discuss him. Let's go over his analytics. What are the things that he's good at on paper? What are the things that he's bad at on paper? And then, of course, what he actually did in his rookie season, which I think is actually pretty underrated in terms of what he was able to accomplish in his rookie season. The terms you should be familiar with, if you're not familiar with these terms, defensive market share is definitely a term that you may not be familiar with. Defensive market share is essentially you take an individual defensive statistic and you divide it by the total team statistic. So, for example, if Ogbah had 10 sacks in a season on a team that had 40 sacks in a season, then Ogbah had 25% sack market share. And what you do is you take that number and you compare it to every single defensive end slash edge rusher type pass rusher, essentially, since the 1989 NFL draft class. And then you're able to see where the All-Pro players performed, where the Pro Bowl players performed, where the starters performed, so on and so forth, and you get a good idea of what type of production you need to have if you're going to be a special pass rusher long term. And then, of course, we're going to look at his athleticism, specifically explosive lower body strength score, speed score, and flexibility score. Explosive lower body strength is the vertical and the broad jump measured against mass density. Mass density is weight divided by height. The speed score is the 40-yard dash measured against mass density. And then the flexibility score is the short shell / three cone measured against mass density. With all that stuff out of the way, and we're also going to look at his NFL production with the same sort of methodology when it comes to his market share production. But yeah, with all that stuff out of the way, let's get to Emmanuel Ogbah in terms of what his production looked like, his athleticism, and all those other sort of marks coming out of college, and then, of course, what he looked like in the NFL. So starting out with Emmanuel Ogbah when it comes to his production, he had a 76.95 solo tackle market share score. When you look at that score compared to the All-Pro threshold and the Pro Bowl threshold, and these are bottom-end thresholds for pass rushers, he pretty much hits the Pro Bowl threshold when it comes to solo tackle market share. Doesn't hit the All-Pro threshold. And again, that's the bottom end threshold when it comes to multiple All-Pro pass rushers. But he does at least hit the Pro Bowl threshold when it comes to that particular number, which is very good. He also had an 82 sack market share score, which hits at least the Pro Bowl threshold when it comes to that particular metric. And then when it comes to his tackle for loss metric, he had an 81.08 market share production score when it comes to his tackle for loss, which hits the All-Pro and the Pro Bowl threshold when it comes to that. Based on his production coming out of college, he pretty much profiles as a potential Pro Bowl edge rusher. He has pretty decent marks in solo tackle market share, pretty decent marks in sack market share, and of course pretty decent marks in tackle for loss market share. So he has a good combination of traits indicative of a potential Pro Bowl player. Which brings us to his athleticism. When it comes to his athleticism, he had a 91.81 explosive lower body strength score, a 97.09 speed score, and an 81.49 flexibility score. As you peep this number, you'll look at what the All-Pro thresholds are, the Pro Bowl thresholds, and starter thresholds. He pretty much hit all those thresholds when it comes to his explosiveness, his speed, and his flexibility. And you may go, okay, so you're telling me that he is a All-Pro athlete. And no. Main reason why is because when you actually do the three-cone assessment, because the three-cone assessment is something that I only do at positions where there's a clear delineation between high and low for three cones, running backs, defensive ends, stuff like that. And when it comes to the three-cone, 100% of multiple All-Pro edge rushers since the 1999 NFL draft class had at least a 7.11 or less 3-cone, and Emmanuel Ogbah's 3-cone was a 7.26 out of 100. So despite the fact that Emmanuel Ogbah, for his size, has pretty good flexibility, has pretty decent speed, and also has pretty decent explosiveness, in terms of his flexibility testing, it doesn't really, there's an issue there. Specifically, the issue, it revolves around his 3-cone. But there's good news in that the Pro Bowl threshold for the 3-cone is a 7.37 out of 100. So in Ogbah's case, based on his athleticism traits and based on his production traits, he profiled as a Pro Bowl level edge rusher for the most part. He pretty much had above average marks in production, significantly, if not elite marks in terms of his explosiveness and his speed. And the only issue where he had some issues was his flexibility, specifically the 3-cone. Didn't really hit the marks that it needed to hit. But it's good. I mean, he profiled as a potential Pro Bowl edge rusher. And on top of that, when you actually look at his NFL production, this was from 2016. This takes into account solo tackle market share compared to peers in 2016, sack market share compared to peers, pass deflection market share compared to peers. His total impact score was a 91.62 in his rookie season, which is essentially a top 10 performer in terms of his overall production. He had a 78.05 solo tackle market share score, 87.87 sack market share score, and 85.95 pass deflection market share score. So he was pretty good, at least when it comes to the pass rushers on the Cleveland Browns. He was the best pass rusher in terms of total impact on the Browns last year. That is the least that you can conclude from this data. But it is encouraging to see Ogbah get this type of production in his rookie season. I mean, it's a good thing. It's never a bad thing to have a guy produce like this. But what I'm really interested in with Ogbah is the future, because the Cleveland Browns added Myles Garrett. They added lots of of course, Caleb Brantley's also in the mix a little bit in terms of what he might do. And they, of course, Jamie Collins, this is the second year for him in that system, at least a full, having a full training camp and everything else to get into that system. So I'm actually pretty excited to see what Ogbah turns into, because, he was already a fairly productive guy in 2016. Adding Garrett may affect this production, but I think it might even make him better, because now that teams have to worry about Myles Garrett, Ogbah will probably be given more opportunities to take advantage of people focusing on Myles Garrett. So this is a pretty dang good tandem for the future. I mean, you have a guy in Myles Garrett who is a super explosive, super fast guy, and then of course you have Emmanuel Ogbah, who's a super explosive, super fast guy. Teams, I mean, you as a football team, you either have both offensive tackle spots with a great offensive tackle, or you're going to have to do tons of tight end sets, double tight end sets to kind of deal with this, which limits your offense to a certain extent. So I think this is pretty exciting, guys. I think Ogbah is someone who, based on his data, again, coming out of college, had Pro Bowl potential. I think that I wouldn't say he's living up to that 100% yet, but the arrow's pointing up for him based on his production last year, and I'm just going to be super excited to see where he goes in the future in terms of his production, of course, his growth and everything else like that. So again, you can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.